He's a true multi-hyphenate creative, writer, director, and founder of JLB Media Productions. He's helmed thousands of corporate videos, music videos, and shorts, but it's his heart for character-driven storytelling that shines through in his indie film work. His latest feature is the Comic Shop. Excuse me. It's a heartfelt and personal story about two very different comic book fans. One, a delusion store owner; the other, a shy teenager, who form an unlikely bond that changes both their lives. With a talented cast that includes Jesse Metcalfe, the newcomer Micah Giovanni, the film tackles identity, purpose, and finding your inner hero, all against the nostalgic and colorful backdrop of comic book culture, which we love here on Pop Culture Warrior. Jonathan's a Star Wars fan, former film critic, and passionate voice in independent filmmaking. Please welcome to the show, Jonathan Bowen. Let me unmute him. All right,
Bowen.
welcome.
Hey, thanks for having me.
It wouldn't be a Pop Culture Warrior without a little technical difficulty.
Oh, it's all good.
That's our signature.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So welcome. Yeah, you a lot of stuff going on. Very busy. Thank you for coming on the show and chatting with us.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
We'll kick it right off. We ask every guest this after their fantastic introduction. I think I do it better than CQ does, but what is your connection to the military?
So I don't have a lot of connection in the military, but I was just mentioning sort of backstage. When I went to the Beverly Hills Film Festival last month, I met a guy named Asher, just sort of by coincidence at one of the after parties. And we've sort of become friends because it started out like, oh, where are you in from? And he said, oh, I live in Las Vegas. And I said, oh, I live in Las Vegas. And he said, oh, well, specifically, I live in Henderson. I was like, I live in Henderson. And so I was like, well, what exit are you off of? We realized we're like 5 minutes away from each other. And so he served 10 years in the U.S. Navy as like a pilot doing evacuations and was like medevac, a lot of natural disaster stuff. So it was kind of like a funny connection. And I've always sort of gravitated towards, I think, more military people just because we share more common values than I do with a lot of people. And oddly enough, I know this doesn't sound like a connection, but it's just funny and worth mentioning. I've gotten a lot of people be like, oh, are you in the military? Because I'll like be walking with my best friend who's a police officer, and we both, I guess, have a certain walk. I don't know if it's like a assertive walk or like a more authoritative or something. So we get people like, oh, you guys are military, right? I'm like, I'm not military. He's police, but that's as close as it gets, you know? So it's just one of those funny things. You know, I don't know like why people always do that. And if I don't get military, I get one of my wife's friends like, well, your husband's a police officer, right? She's like, no, my husband's never been a police officer. It's just one of those funny things.
Yeah, it's that confident, walk, chest out.
Right. I think
your hair
it's like that. And if you have like, if you have like kind of shortish hair and you have that sort of look to you, then people think like, I don't know, that you exude some sort of authority, even though it's like, nah, I don't have any authority.
No, that's good. I get it all the time, but it's obvious.
The other funny one is one of my like sort of a casual friend. He's just the nicest guy, but he doesn't have a lot of time because he's got a couple kids and he's like the lead carpenter for this company that did a bunch of the, even in my office, like you can't see it, but to the side, they did a lot of the carpentry work. And so we started talking. He's a big Star Wars fan. He's big into movies. And then he's like, happens to be like a Yankees fan and all these kind of things in common. And of course, here, Golden Knights. And so he was a former Marine and he was a sniper spotter. Oh, but it was really, really funny because I don't know, like you always picture Marine as like really, badass and just like, I don't know, kind of maybe harsh even. But he is the absolute nicest guy, like just a complete sweet guy, and very soft spoken too. So it kind of surprised me, but he knows his stuff and he knows his guns.
Yeah, he should, I would hope. Yeah. That's how a lot of us are. I don't know, we don't really brag about much. I was in the Marines too.
Right. Nice.
Um, unless we get around Army guys, then we talk a lot of shit. But
Right. Yeah, totally. I know there's that whole, thing where there's like Navy SEALs, Army Rangers, Marines, and like everyone talking about like who's the most badass or
exactly.
whatever.
All right. So your movie is, I'd say it's something that when CQ sent it over to me, and then I read the stuff, the synopsis that they send us. I was like, oh my gosh, this is great. Um, I think everyone that likes comic books or whatever, they always have their comic book shop that they visited. That's how I got into comic books. A friend of mine was into them, took me to the comic book shop.
That
You
was
don't
how
want
it
to
was for
go, and I was like, I'm not going there. It's where all the nerds are.
right. Yeah.
He's like, no, come on, whatever. And you go, and been going ever since. I think that was like 12 or 13 or
That is
something.
so funny. It was similar for me. It was like honestly, like I don't want to be mean, but it was like a much nerdier kid who like kind of took me and he sort of got me into it. And I know everyone has like totally different upbringing and like you see all the movies and I gathered that that's somewhat true is that there's these cliques, but I had kind of a weird upbringing because like three of my good friends were super nerds. Like it was always video games, comics, everything nerdy. And then my other three friends were like the three biggest jocks. And my parents insisted that I always choose a sport, like each season, whether it's fall, winter, spring. So I was always into sports. I loved following sports. I played them, but I also love video games and I love comics. So I didn't like neatly fit into the boxes. And then each group of friends would tell me, man, I don't know why you hang out with those nerds. Those kids are a bunch of losers. And then the nerdy kids are like, I don't know why you hang out with those jocks. Like they're just such like jerks, And so it's funny because I'm like, because I like both these things, and you guys won't hang out together, so I have to, split my time between these groups, which is kind of weird, but
Exactly. That exact same boat I was in. It was like between both, um, and then the potheads too.
right. That's funny. Oh, that was later for me. That was late high school and college. Two of my good friends were like huge potheads. And I mean, one of them's like on a first name basis with the dealer who's like at Oregon State, and it's like, and he told me once we were walking to a restaurant, he's like, "Oh, dude, I just got to make like a quick stop," and I'm like, "Okay, where?" And he's like, "Oh man, it's just somebody's house. It's not a big deal." And then like this deal's going down like right in front of me, and I was like, man, what the heck, like I didn't need to be here for that. But it was funny. And one of the guys ended up going to Stanford and majoring in law,
Nice.
and I think he's a public defender for the state of Oregon now. So like his huge thing was that he wanted to be the one to defend people against like pointless drug crimes.
Nice.
Of course, little did he know that Oregon would eventually pretty much decriminalize the whole
No, he's got
so he kind of got his way in a different way. But I remember I saw him at the very first like winter break, and I asked him, are you still enjoying your marijuana fairly often? And he like kind of pauses and he gets this sheepish look and he's like, no man, like law school is a lot harder than I thought it would be. And I was like, well, you're going to Stanford Law.
Yeah,
like you should have kind of expected it to be difficult.
just a little. Like University of Phoenix online or something.
Yeah, exactly. Oh man. Like I remember one of my friends too, the other pothead. He was really smart too back then. He was in engineering, and he would tell me that he had all kinds of wrong sayings like study high, get high grades, and stuff like this. And then he said that if he studies when he's smoking weed, then he has to smoke weed before the test because that's the only way he'll remember it. I'm like, I don't know. I'm not sure if that logic makes any sense, but it worked for him somehow.
They should make a book of all the pothead logics.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It's so true. I feel like most of my other friends and I, we just liked our drinks, you know. Like
Yeah.
we were usually just drinking too much, and then we'd be laughing at the potheads because they'd be pointing to stuff on the wall and telling us how deep it was, you know. And we're just like, dude, you are way too high. Like, nothing
Exactly.
you just said makes any sense.
Yeah, I got into drinking in the Marines. You
Yeah,
also excel at.
yeah. Don't blame me there.
But yeah, no, I thought it was a great idea for a movie. It's highly relatable, and like I said, that's it's. I still remember my first comic shop. I went there for I would say five till I up until I went in the Marines, and then when I got back, I went back and visited them. Um, I think everyone has the shop they like with the owner. And I think they're all a lot of them closed up. Mine closed up.
Yeah,
I
I
think it was
know.
2005. I want to say. eBay was big, and he's like, I make
Right.
more money selling on eBay than I ever did here. I don't have to come in. I don't have to hire anyone. I have no
And
mortgage,
no lease.
no
Yeah,
lease. Yeah.
exactly.
So
Yeah, you're right. It is sad because so I'll tell you, it was kind of like a weird experience. And the movie came out, for rent or sale on April 11th. And I just, because it's not like, it's not going to theaters or anything. So I want to find something fun to do. And so my wife's like, well, we'll have dinner with the relatives that night. That'll be nice. And I'm like, yeah, okay, that's nice. And maybe I was like, what about if in the afternoon, what if we visit the two comic stores that we filmed at, for the movie? And I'll be honest, I didn't look them up before the day. Like I don't know, I just assumed that they would be there. And so then the main one that we filmed at for like half the movie, so about 8 days, we go to drive there and I look it up and it's permanently closed. Like they still have like an online presence, but it doesn't exist anymore. And so that was kind of sobering and I was like, wow, like I guess my movie actually has some fairly relatable and true aspects in it here. Like just like Mike's store in the movie, this one isn't there anymore. Now the other one still is, but still same kind of depressing story. So a lot of people I think in comics know about it because the System of a Down drummer owns this place,
oh,
Torpedo.
okay.
And they had 5 locations. There were 4 in Southern California. I couldn't tell you exactly what they are, but like, it was like Irvine and like other, I think Anaheim, stuff like that. And then the one in Vegas. And now they told me they're down to just the one in Vegas and just one in Southern California. So even in those 2.5 years since filming, that's 6 stores and now down to 2.
Yeah.
You know,
Jeez.
it's a really tough
It's
industry, and it is too bad. I know the pandemic didn't do them any favors, but I think having like a space, like you said, you get to know the owner or at least regular people, if not the owner, at least somebody who's always there,
right.
and it becomes like a special place to go. And of course, you can get this stuff online. I know briefly they were doing. I don't know if they do this anymore, but they were doing like direct deliveries, like
Yeah.
Marvel's trying to do. But it's not the same thing. It's like browsing a store. It's fun to go to a store and see all the stuff. Some stuff you would never have noticed or wanted until you saw it on the shelves.
Exactly. And this other thing, they always like they have their picks, like or they comment. Oh, this. My guy was always like talking shit. Like, oh, this is terrible. Like this shit.
That is
So
so
like
funny.
you get their advice, or other people that are there, like, oh yeah, I read that. That's cool. Or check out this. That's how. Well, you talk about it in the movie, but that's I got into a lot of independent comics from the shop. Like I
Yes.
used to only read like Batman and Avengers and
Right.
stuff like that, and then go into the shop and they're like, no, check out this. This is way better. And then I got into weird shit like Chew and stuff. uh,
Yeah. I think and that was a big thing I wanted to kind of explore, even though I didn't personally know a ton about it. When I was writing the script, I went into a comic store up in Portland where I was living, and I was like, okay, I know it sounds weird, but I'm doing research for the script, and I just need your advice. Like, make me a stack of indie comics that like that you think, are truly indie, but that are like good and different and representative of indie comics. Like, don't make it all the same thing. Give me a weird like variety of stuff. And I remember there was even stuff in there like Paper Girls, which eventually became, an Amazon show, which is, it's so funny because, here's something he hands me. It's like, oh, this is really indie. And then it ends up being picked up by Amazon like 3 years later. But yeah, I think that those guys, because to run a comic store, you really have to be a big fan.
Right.
Whereas there's other types of businesses where it's more about just the business and you can make good money at it. Whereas something in like comics, it's people don't usually go into this to make a killing, It's more because they absolutely love comics and being surrounded by comics and getting an excuse to read them all, talk to the customers and make recommendations is something exciting for them. Maybe almost like it nowadays, like an independent bookstore, which there's not very many of those left either.
Yeah. That's exactly what it's almost like a bartender, but you're not in a bar. That's your comic book shop owner. The like people you talk to or whatever.
And those things too. I mean, like I remember during the pandemic, where was it? I think it was Lee's Liquor that's here. And so you could order your liquor online, which is nice. I mean, because it was peak pandemic, and so I went on the website, told them to get me stuff, but it's nothing quite like getting the real recommendations. When I've actually been surprised, places like Total Wine, there's some really knowledgeable people there, and so I'll go for like my go-to thing, and they're like, yeah, I mean that's good, but have you tried this other thing? It's actually like $5 cheaper a bottle, and I think it's better. And a lot of times, I'll take the recommendations and be like, dang, it is actually better. Exactly. Like, Andy saved me money. This is great,
And they got that from comic book shops. Like, that's where that stuff started. Right. Is like their pick in bookstores, the pick. Well, maybe video stores,
and like your Blockbuster videos too. I remember that those guys would be good about that too, because you could ask them like, okay, so I like this, that, and the other thing. What do you have any recommendations like along those lines or something maybe sort of similar? And most of the people, they were pretty good at it. They would know what other stuff, even if they hadn't seen everything, they would know what other people are renting that's like the movies that you just got. So it was almost like algorithm before there was algorithm, but like more human based,
That's true. So, someone in the chats wanted to know what were your favorite comics before you filmed the movie and then afterwards, after you did all your research, if you got any new ones you liked.
Yeah, I mean, I can't necessarily say I like got new ones necessarily after the movie, but as a kid, like I started, pretty simple, I suppose too. Like I started with mainly Marvel. Then of course I got into some DC, like Batman. There was some Dark Knight line at that time. Yeah. And then I started veering off a bit, and then I got really into Image comics because I just thought it was so cool that all these like top creators had left to make their own company. Right. And so I kind of got a little bit into almost everything Image, but specifically I became a huge Spawn fan. So I bought like all the action figures. Like I had the variants of the action figures and then all the issues and just random anything that they made that was Spawn. I was pretty interested in. I just really liked the story. I thought the illustration was, really top notch. But I tried to give a chance to, most of the Spawn or the Image books, like at least a little bit. And I can't say my knowledge of them all was super high, but I couldn't get away from always buying the #1 issue of everything like that. Right. If nothing else, I just had to have it and collect it. And then I kind of went, I go a little off the beaten path, like some Valiant stuff. But I wouldn't say that I ever, because of my age, maybe too, I never went much away from superhero stuff. Whereas that was something I noticed before doing the research for the movie, is that there's actually a lot of comics that are, not superhero based, like a Paper Girls or things like that. Even something, you know, like The Walking Dead is, it's not about that. I mean, it's still supernatural, it's zombies and whatnot, but it's not like we don't have Superman in a zombie world.
Exactly.
You know,
Yeah.
that'd be cool and all, but you know, that's not really what it is. So I think that was a kind of neat, eye-opening thing as more of an adult, realizing that, well, comics, just like anything else, like TV or movies, it's just a medium of storytelling. So I know some people like my dad, you know, he's pretty old. He thinks comics has to either be like the Sunday funnies that he grew up with, or it has to be like superheroes and spandex.
Yeah.
But it can actually be anything. It can be anything you want to draw and tell a story about using this medium, which is, I think, really fun.
It's fantastic, and like there's so many good stories, like you said. Anything you can think of, like detective stuff, like anything. It's just
Right.
crazy. Elf stuff, anything you can imagine, it's out there. And a lot of it's crap, but there's some good stuff in there too.
Yeah.
I think
And it's neat too. They can like appeal to different markets, you know, even if you want to, if it's like offbeat, like LGBTQ comics, you know, they know, hey, this is our audience. This is what we're making this for. And that's the thing about the medium is it's not so expensive, right? Like it's not like making a movie where, I mean, the smallest movie costs such a fortune that
right.
you really have to have a decent audience in mind or it's not going to make its money back.
Exactly. But comics is a lot of them. They do. We've had a few people on here. They do crowdfunding, like
Right.
a couple $1,000, and you get a couple hundred issues out, a couple thousand issues out of whatever
Wow.
you
Yeah,
want.
yeah.
Um,
Yeah, it doesn't have to be a huge run, right? It can be more, you know, limited.
and if it's good, they can make a movie or whatever later on it, which is a
Right.
lot of things they do. So, um,
Yeah.
Gen 13. Someone says Gen 13 comic series was sick. Yeah, I have that first issue. I've Spawn. I have a poster signed by McFarlane too. But
Oh,
I have Spawn
nice.
#1 also. But I love that too.
Yeah.
So if we ever
I
get
I
him on,
kind of
we'll tell you that you want to direct a movie. Tell him you want to direct a movie when it comes, whenever
all
if they ever
right.
get around to it.
I know he really, that's what I was hearing is he really wants to get, you know, even he's been talking about that for a while, like getting another Spawn movie off the ground. I liked the first Spawn movie. I'm not saying it was like great, but like I enjoyed it for what it was. Maybe
For
just because I was
its
such a
time,
big
it was
fan.
spectacular. I mean,
Yeah.
I'd say one of the better
I
comic book movies of that era.
right.
I mean,
I'd love to see a rebooted Spawn. Like with today's technology
oh,
and all, I
oh, I
think it could
think
be
it'd be
awesome.
awesome, excellent. We'll see. We'll keep our fingers crossed. But yeah, he's been pushing. I think it's been like over 10 years. He's been pushing.
I know. I was gonna say. I think it has been over 10 years, and I just hope it happens one time. I mean, I know that's how these things go, though. I mean, look at how many movies there are like that. Where I remember hearing about Beverly Hills Cop 4 when it was like the mid '90s,
Right.
and then here we are finally. What was it, like a year or two ago?
Yeah, it
Then
was like
here's
last year.
finally. I thought that would absolutely never happen. I will say one thing about that movie that was really funny to me is, man, like it's true what they say, like black don't crack, because Eddie Murphy looked great in that movie.
Right.
And then the two white guys look like they
They
had
look
aged about
terrible.
50 years. They
Like, are
didn't
they
even look alike.
85? What's going on
Yeah.
here?
And it was like I'm like watching this like, okay, Eddie Murphy looks like he's like 8 years older than he was, even though it's been 30 years since then.
Yeah.
Like,
It's like,
what
what
is
the
going
hell?
on? They'll get it off the ground. I'm sure they'll get the Spawn thing eventually. And I think that they could. I think something like that could be cool because, as you see, Marvel sort of hasn't had the most success lately. I know the reviews on Thunderbolt were really good. I saw it as well. Um, it was fun, but even then, the box office wasn't. It wasn't great, not by Marvel standards.
No.
So I think we could use a little something that's different. That I think most comic fans know Spawn. They really should. It's well known. It's not like Spider-Man, of course not, because my dad knows what Spider-Man is.
Yeah.
But once you get to older people, they probably don't know Spawn if they're like over 65 or
No.
something.
I think, and that's what I think did the original one in too, was they marketed it as a big blockbuster. It's like it's an independent. You gotta give it that independent touch, that rated R, hard R, kind of like Deadpool,
Right.
and just go for it. Stick to the material.
Yeah, you're
Make it
right.
excellent.
Because it is not. You're so right. Like, I mean, you look at those comics, and so one thing I did after the movie, I haven't made a lot of progress, but I was buying the digital Spawn ones because I sold my collection so long ago.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to like get the 50 issue digital collections so that I can just go through and just I'd love to catch up. You know, I'd love to see what happened after I stopped reading.
Right.
And it's kind of fun, like browsing the pages on the iPad. Of course, real comics. I mean, I would never, you know, that's amazing. But like at the same time, I'm not going to go buy 300 issues of Spawn at this
Right.
point. I don't have the room for that, and it's like the money also is when I just want to catch up on the story for me as somebody who was into it a long time ago. And you're right, though. That is not PG-13. Like, I mean, spleens are getting ripped out and there's blood all over the place. Like, that is a hard R.
Yeah.
I mean, even the subject matter is like, you know, my uncle is like a pastor, and he wouldn't be a huge fan of the Spawn story.
Yeah.
It would not be up his alley at all.
Exactly. Yeah, I think it'd be excellent. We'll see what happens, but I mean,
Right.
you can't get too much in the comics, but they did it with Deadpool. They could do it definitely with, and they did Preacher. Preacher was insanely sick.
Oh
comic.
yeah.
I don't know if you ever read that.
A little,
It's
yeah.
pretty rough too.
Definitely.
So we'll see. All right, back to you. So you've directed corporate videos, music videos, short films, and 2 indie features. What was the moment when you knew that this was the story for your next project?
Hmm. So, okay, so like basically in 2018, I sort of put aside the corporate work a bit and told my top employee that like I really need her to manage the company this year. I'll be here, I'll write the checks like I always do. I'll be involved, but I can't be doing all the day to day because I said there's too many years that have passed that I haven't gotten to pursue what I want to do and actually be, you know, writing scripts and focusing on my film career. So it needs to happen now because I'm not getting any younger. And I spent the year writing a bunch of scripts, and I didn't care about the budget of them. I didn't care about whether I'd be able to do them. I was just trying to write good scripts, get the cobwebs off, and like, you know, hone the craft. So the comic shop was really the only script I wrote that could be done on any sort of decent budget. I think one or two of the other ones, one of them you could probably do on 4 or 5 million, and then another maybe. It just depends how you cast it and do it, like 7 to 20 million. So it wouldn't be like insanely expensive, but well beyond, you know, that kind of small indie level. And so as I sent these scripts off to contests, I actually got the best response on the comic shop, which kind of surprised me because yeah, it was the most indie one that I wrote. And but I don't know, people seem to like it, and I think they like the characters, and they like the maybe just the sense of like place, I guess, and that it was like you could connect to these people. So then, kind of happened when I met with my producer to try to get this document signed. Like I needed to get my rights back on the first film I did. So I own most of the movie, but not all of it, and the producers own the other piece. So the movie was long ago, like out. You know, the money situation was dealt with. So I was like, "Can I get you guys to sign off on this? Because then at least I can go redistribute the movie. And you know, look, we're never going to make much money on it, but at least it'll be available on iTunes or things like that." And so that meeting turned into like, well, what have you guys been up to, or what have you been up to? And it was just kind of funny because I'm here in Vegas, and my producer's like, "Hey, I'll be in Vegas next Wednesday if you want to have lunch." And I'm like, wow, that's a coincidence, but sure, let's do it. So we had like this 4 hour lunch, and he kind of asked me, he said, "Okay, are there any scripts that you could do right now?" And I'm like, I mean, yeah, I guess there's one. And so I told him about it, told him the idea, and he liked it because they were working on something they had the rights to still have the rights, I assume, to Stan Lee's unproduced characters, basically like characters that he had created but that never made it into the comics.
Okay.
So they were working on this like TV series, like Stan Lee Presents, and I honestly I don't know what happened to that, but that's what they were trying to do at the time. So this movie kind of fit in with some of what they were already looking at, and that's why his eyes lit up, and he was like, "Oh yeah," he's like, "Let's do it." And I'm kind of thinking, like, right now? And he's like, "Yeah, well, what else are you doing? Why not?" Like, I mean, I guess I'm not really doing anything else. I guess we could do it. And so we kind of embarked on this, this long journey to make this thing, and it really ended up being funny. Just I don't know, it's just such a coincidence. And my wife was kind of the one telling me like, I think you should do it. You've waited over a decade to make a second movie, and I just don't want to have to wait over a decade to make the third.
Exactly.
That's kind of, unfortunately, human lifespan isn't over thousands of years. So a
Right.
decade between movies doesn't leave you with much of a career.
Exactly. Let's start calling you Kevin Smith.
Right?
Well, that's also like something like any skill that you have. If you don't keep exercising it, it goes away.
Right.
I mean, just putting
Yeah.
stuff down, even if it never gets made. I mean, it could lead
Yeah.
to great things later.
And I do think that there was like I know there was a little bit of that, like where there was kind of that self-doubt, because making a movie is a really insane amount of work. And I don't think that a lot of audiences realize that, especially as they might sit there on their phone for half the movie and then casually rate the movie like, 2 stars or
Trash.
something like
Yeah.
that. Trash. And of course, it's their right to an opinion. I'm not saying it isn't. I'm just saying that like it is so much work that when you were thinking about embarking on it again, there's that party that's excited, like, yeah, making another movie. I mean, that would be great. But then you think about like, gosh, I had to get up at 4:15 in the morning on the first day. I didn't go to bed until midnight that night. Got up again the next day at 5, and so you're sleeping 4 or 5 hours a night the whole time. And then there's a lot of egos. It's just, it doesn't matter what the shoot is. There's creative disagreements, egos, difficulties, things that you can't control, technical issues. Like we had one of those on the first day. We got kicked out of a park on the first day. We thought we were permitted, but they basically were like, "No, you're permitted for the road, but you parked all of your production vehicles in the parking lot, and you were not permitted for that." But luckily, we started so early the first day. By the time they kicked us out, we were already done with the scene.
Nice.
So I was like, "Okay, yeah, no, we'll leave. We'll leave right away." As I'm like, "We got it already. Let's get out of here." It was really funny. And so I think that there was that part of me thinking, man, I remember this being really hard to make a movie when I was like 27 years old, and now I'm almost 40 doing this. I thought, I hope I have it in me again. But then you think, well, Clint Eastwood just made a movie. He did it when he was 93 years old, so I'm sure I can do it. But
Yeah. I don't know how he does it. That's insane to me.
I don't either. And I do know, like, the thing is that they all have a lot more help. Like, we had a second AD on our film who worked on The Irishman, and I kind of asked him, I said, so how does he do that? I mean, this is a long shoot, and I mean, I really like The Irishman, and I know some people's complaints about the de-aging, but I like the story overall. I thought it was a good story.
Mm-hmm.
And he said that what they would do is, he comes out and he kind of describes like where the movement is. Like, okay, they're going to be walking through here. They're going to go sit at this table. I picture this is kind of what we're looking at. Maybe lights over there. And then he goes into his trailer and he takes a nap, and while they spend the next 2-3 hours setting up the lights.
Oh, nice.
So that's the way you direct that when you are older, because you're tired. I mean, you can't be sleeping 4 hours a night when you're 75, 80 years old. It's just that's gonna wear on your body too quickly. So they find ways to get it done. But in the indie world, I mean, you don't get to just do like a job. You, for the most part, you're the one who cares the most if you're the writer director. So I've always found myself doing little bits of production design, and that's not to take away from any of my, production designers, but they're given too much work to do and too small of a time. So I always have to be more involved because I know exactly what I want to see. I know what I'm seeing in my brain, and they don't know. So I sometimes I'm like, this is going to be easier for me if I actually just kind of like do the work to mock it up and show you what I want to see.
Right. Yeah, you guys are like the grunts. You guys do all the work. And the big guys are the pogues. They just sit in their offices and they get catered to. But it's also
Right?
your baby. I mean, if you
I
don't
know.
care and do it, it's not going to get done or it won't get done
It,
right.
You're so right though, because there's definitely times where I'm like, thinking, man, it must be nice that these guys like have somebody just bring them coffee whenever. And it sounds really spoiled, but like I remember one time on set because I can't leave we're in the middle of stuff, but I am dying. I'm so tired. My eyes won't stay open, and I'm like, I need coffee. Like it's no one's business. So I'm just kind of like looking around to see if anyone isn't busy or doing something. I'm like, oh, okay, no. And then finally, you're like, can somebody just bring me some coffee? Like, I don't care what it has. Like, yes, cream sugar or not. I don't care. Black is fine too. Just I administer coffee because I'm tired.
Exactly.
And then you get to about week 2 and the coffee stops working as well. Like your body is literally like, no, like we're done with your BS, like if you want to function, you need to sleep. You need to stop abusing me with all this caffeine.
Yeah. Yeah, and you shot that in 15 days.
15 days,
That's
yeah.
insane. I've never heard of a movie done that quickly.
Yeah, there's a lot of the really small ones. Like Jesse did an action movie that was that the one with, I think it was the one with Bruce Willis, but they filmed that thing in 10 days.
Oh wow.
And I thought, like, how do you film an action movie in 10 days though? Because you've got to choreograph all the stunts and like I don't
Right.
I don't get that. Like maybe if there's enough camera angles or something like that, or like or you had the pre-production, like everyone knows what they're like how the things are playing out. But all I can say is even 15 days is like there's no room for error, really. Like you can't if something gets messed up, you're in trouble. It's nerve-wracking.
I bet. What were the big hurdles with that? Any than the ones you already mentioned, or?
Yeah. So basically first day the camera was having issues and it was like shutting off in the middle of a scene, but it was even worse than that because it was shutting off and not remembering the data that it already recorded. So it just would be gone completely. And we could not figure out what was the deal with it and kind of had to shut down production for a couple of hours. We were actually going to send everybody home for the day. And it's the worst way to start a movie
Right.
when we realized that it was because one of the producers, rest in peace, he ended up dying like 3 months after the shoot, sadly.
Oh
Um, he bought off-brand batteries, and like
wow.
the one thing that I've done it myself, I made the same mistake in my 20s. And my wife was giving me crap because I let her use this camera, and I had all these off-brand batteries. So is the Canon ones are like $90,
Right.
and then the off-brand ones are like $16. So you're looking there on Amazon, you're like, I don't need a brand battery. Like I can get 5 of these things. But it's not a good idea. The Canon ones, like they really do work better, and same with any other brand. Like this was, our Arri Alexa. And so for that kind of stuff, just spend the money to get the good stuff. So when we fixed that, we were able to complete the day, but on one of Tristan's takes, like her turnaround, we probably had 5 takes of Jesse, and then when we turn around on Tristan, we had one single take of her, and I knew we might not have a chance to go back and get a second or third. We had to go back to the location. It just wasn't going to happen. There's no room in the schedule. So we're reviewing it nervously, like, is this good enough? And luckily she nailed it on the first take. There was no mistakes. It was perfect. And we actually showed it to her too. And she's very confident but also realistic. A lot of actors are very nervous and they don't like their work. Tristan watches the thing back And I'm like looking at her face, like hoping she thinks it's okay. And she goes, oh, okay, I was good. And I was like, oh, okay, I'm glad she's happy with it. And then we had the biggest issue, and this one was a bad one. I was working out of my home gym. It was Sunday night, probably like 6 p.m., 6:30. I get a call from one of the producers, which I figure probably can't be a good thing. Like, I don't really need to be hearing from him on a Sunday. Just email me, you know? So if it's not an email, it's probably not good. And so then he tells me to like sit down and that he's gonna give me the worst news probably that like a director can get. And I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, I was like, it better not be somebody died. I mean,
Yeah, right.
like, what is going on here, you know? And so then he said, well, Jesse had some sort of problem. Like, we don't know the details, but he had some sort of altercation with the TSA. And he had left for this Christmas convention, which was already its own thing. He didn't tell us about this before production. And I found out from like, I don't know, Instagram or something like that. And so we already had to schedule around him not being there for Friday. Jesse shot 14 of the 15 days for the movie. He's because he's in almost every scene. So that was it. That was the only day we could afford not to have him. And so then Ron tells me that Jesse has been put on a 24-hour no-fly list, and he is not allowed, even a charter plane or a private jet, he's not allowed to get on it legally and come back to Vegas. So we're going to have to miss Monday, and we're going to have to reschedule everything Monday and push it all so that it's Tuesday through Saturday instead. And it really screwed things up because that Monday we had our Carrot Top cameo, we had the Eric Roberts cameo, and like this other location. Luckily, both of those two, you know, were still said we can just do it on Tuesday. So it worked out okay, but everyone was scrambling like all night long to rebook things and like tell the crew that we're not coming in tomorrow. And the kind of ironic part is that that day was my 40th birthday. I was not a happy camper when we were in pre-production, and it started to look more and more like, oh great, I'm going to spend my 40th birthday on set. Like, in some way I thought, well, okay, filmmaking's my dream. Okay, I guess that there's worse ways to spend your 40th birthday. But I wanted to like relax and just have a nice time and all. So I kind of had put it out into the universe like, man, I wish I didn't have to work on my birthday. And the universe was like, oh, well, we can make that happen for you. so one thing I've realized about the universe is do not ever do that. Be extremely specific. Like, I could have said something like, gosh, in some alternate reality, I wish we had been shooting this movie in October or something like that, so that it didn't happen to fall on my 40th. But if you put out into the universe, like, gosh, I wish I didn't have to work on my birthday, all of a sudden it's like, well, what? You got what you asked for.
Exactly.
And I'm like, that's not what I meant.
I don't have that kind of luck. I do that all the time. Put all kinds of stuff out there. Nothing happens. The CQ
I
has
feel
luck like that. I wish I found $100, and you'll find $100. I'm like, what the hell, man?
Right?
I
feel like I put
and
it out.
A meteor hits me.
Yeah. No, I'll like put it out, and it will like pervert my intention. You know, like, let's say you're like, oh man, I wish this video game just came out earlier, and then it does, and it's like absolutely awful and needs like a bunch of patches,
exactly,
it's unplayable or something like that. And I'm like, all right, well, maybe it's true. Be careful what you wish for. It doesn't really work out as intended. Speaking of the money, though, that's a funny one. My wife and I think it was our last trip before we moved to Vegas. It was I proposed to her at this time and all. So we're going into one of the casinos, and she like, I don't know, she kind of like lollygags for a second, and I'm like, what's going on back there? You coming in or what? And then she like hurries and catches up, and then she's like, dude, I just found $202. Like, she found two 100s and two $1 bills. And I was like, what? Where? Like, and she's like, they were literally just like on the ground. And I'm like, okay, so I don't know, some high roller was just messing around with his money or something. And I thought, Man, I think the most money I've ever found is like 50 cents or something like that. She finds like $202, and I remember being like, all right, well, I'm just putting this out there, but like I paid for the whole trip, paid for every single thing. Dinner's on you tonight. I mean, you wouldn't have found that money if you weren't here, right? So I just had to give her a hard time, right?
Drop it in some slots or something.
Exactly.
That's crazy. But that's I don't know. That's also something that we don't recognize when we watch movies is things like that. Like all the work, yeah, well, I don't know if you did it, but your team had to do to pre-plan everything that's already planned.
Oh yeah,
probably way ahead of time.
It's usually pre-production. Like I'm extremely involved in that, just because that's like it's the whole like failure to plan is planning to fail. And pre-production is where you kind of have the most control. Like things get out of control when you're shooting, where you're just like, well, I don't know, just do it. Okay, that's fine. It's as good as it's going to get. So set it up, let's do it. Whereas in pre-production, you still have that idealized vision of like everything can be perfect. We just have to plan it right. And I think the days are like they're really full. You sleep enough, but that's all I can say. It's like it's probably 12-hour days, but you'll get your 8 hours of sleep. You'll get your time to eat. But it's like the phone calls and the emails. I mean, I remember my first music videos like this, and I actually thought it was kind of comical. I think I was on the phone for 6 hours in a row. And as a guy, I hate being on the phone. Like I'm not like a gab on the phone person. But I would like pick up the phone and it's like the drummer going, hey, do you guys have a drum deadener? And I'm like, I don't know what that is really. It's like, oh, well, it's so that, the drum doesn't make all this noise. And I'm like, that's not something you can go rent. Like, I mean, we're taking care of the film stuff. And then he's like, well, I don't know, I'll rent it, but just ask around maybe. And I'm like, okay, I'll get back to you. And then you like call your unit production manager. And then he's like, what's he talking about? Drum deadener? That's his problem. Tell him it's his problem. Go get that. Okay, I'll get back to you. And then he like called it, and so then it's like my cinematographer calls me and he's like asking me questions like, well, is the gaffer gonna have access to X, Y, and Z lighting? I'm like, I'll get back to you. And then you call that guy, and it's like, and it's just like goes this way all day long, and I'm like, oh my god, I hate this. So that's sometimes, yeah, it's like pre-production is just like all these things where it's like sometimes you think, why can't you just talk to this guy? I don't need to be in the middle of this. But they'll be asking your advice. And the one thing that we were just talking about, Asher and I, on Saturday about filmmaking, is that you don't want to seem clueless as a director. Even if you don't care, you should probably at least pretend you do. So like if you're a wardrobe person, and keep in mind this is their whole world, right? This is what they do. You want to treat their job like it's important, because it is. And they come to you and they say, well, do you think that it should be wearing like a flowery dress or more of like a black dress? And sometimes as a guy, you're like, dude, I don't care. Like, just whatever. Like, whatever looks good,
Right.
But you have to, like, if you keep doing that, like, especially if you don't put it assertively, like, oh, I don't know, like, what do you think? I mean, I haven't really thought about it. It makes you look really weak, and it kind of makes it look like you don't have a vision. So I would sometimes just make stuff up and be like, I think given her mood in this scene, I don't think she'd be wearing a flowery dress. I think she'd be wearing something solid and black. And that's it. Even if it's not the greatest reason, and even if I'm not as confident as I actually appear to be, they will look at you like, oh, wow, okay, he's thought this through,
Yeah.
So, and it doesn't mean I don't know what I'm talking about most of the time, but there are those instances where you're like, dude, I don't know or care. Like, I don't think it affects
on my mind right now.
Yeah, I don't think it really exactly. Like, I don't think that really affects this particular scene. But the more times that you seem not to have a clue, the more everyone's like, dude, the director has no idea what he's doing. Like,
yeah.
And then you start losing the confidence of the crew, which means then they're just going to do whatever they want because they don't think that you have any idea what's going on. So that was one of the pieces of advice I got from my first AD before my first feature. We were like fixing something up because he was bringing his RV to the set so we could use it as like a mobile production office. That was very indie movie. And he said something to me about like, just make sure you don't lose the crew. And I was kind of like, well, what? How do you know when you lost the crew? And he's like, oh, you'll know, you'll know. And I was like, okay. And I was kind of like, he's making me nervous before I even have directed. And I think I did realize it's something that you just have to seem that you have a vision. Like people have to trust that you understand what you want and that you have put in the thought. It doesn't mean you have to have an answer for everything or be cocky. Like it is okay to say I don't know, but it needs to be uncommon enough where it seems more of a creative involvement. So like if my cinematographer says, "Well, what do you think? I mean, do you think this is something that you would want to play with the dolly, or would you prefer it to be like handheld and close-ups?" If you're not sure, it's okay to say, "Well, my instinct tells me that the close-ups would be good, but what do you think? What would you do?" And then people appreciate you asking for their creative input. And so maybe he says, well, I understand what you're saying, but I just think the dolly shot would look great because we have this great background and it would be a shame to like not be able to see it. Okay, you know what, let's do it your way. That's a good idea. So it's good to involve you have these very creative people around you. You want to take their advice, but you also want to seem like you at least have a clue.
Yeah, exactly. At least for most of the time, fake it till you make
Right.
it, and sound like
Exactly.
you know what you're talking about. That's that's good advice for most things. Most
It's true.
jobs. I
Right?
do a
No,
lot of
you're
that in my
right.
job. So it's the same exact stuff.
Yeah, you're
Middleman,
right.
like going back and forth. I do project management, so it's the same exact stuff. And if
Yeah.
I don't know what you're talking about, I'm not gonna say it. I'm just gonna do the same. Well, I don't know. What do you think on that? I was thinking this. What do you
Right?
think we should do? And then, how
Yeah.
much is that gonna cost me if we do it that way?
Right.
Or
And
how
I
long
will
is it
say,
gonna
like,
take?
my cinematographer on Comic Shop, he was so good. He's just such a professional and such a good eye. I did have a shot list for like every single scene, and it was exhaustively long and well thought out. And sometimes I would show him my shot list, like this is kind of what I was thinking, and he would pause and be like, "Yeah, we could do something like that. It sounds good, but or and then he would make this amazing suggestion, and I would just be like, yeah, okay, well, let's do it your way. That sounds better than what I had. But you can't feel too bad because that's literally his job, right? I mean, he's a cinematographer. I'm the director, so I have an overall vision, and I see my job as much more getting good performances from the actors. That's really the biggest thing. Which is why, like, it kind of makes me laugh. I saw this one review of Comic Shop, and I can't remember where it was, but it was something along the lines of like that the acting was like really good throughout. This person was good, that other person was good, but like, but the direction was kind of like, it was kind of okay, and I just had to laugh at that because I'm like, I mean, who do you think like got those performances? That's literally my job is to make sure that the acting is good. I'm so baffled by that comment. But you can't take it personally. You just have to remember it's like, well, that person's probably never been on a set. They are not exactly sure totally what the director does. And I see that a lot. Like, my best friend, he did this to me in my first movie. I don't know if you've ever seen somebody like this before, but our lead actress, so she got nominated for, I think, like 3 awards for Best Actress. She gave me the performance that I wanted. About half the people who watch the movie think she was great, and the other half the people think she can't act her way out of a wet paper sack. They just don't. They don't like her. They don't, and it's a mannerism thing. It's the best example I can give is like a Ben Affleck. I love Ben Affleck. I think he's a good actor. I think he's probably a better director than he is an actor, even. But he's a good actor. I see other people who are like, "Oh no, Ben Affleck is terrible. He's awful and I hate him." And it's like, well, clearly he can't be the bad actor you're saying he is to all of us because he's made a lot of very successful movies and done quite well at his job. So that was kind of something interesting where my best friend would tell me, "Oh man, I think you did a good job on the movie and all, but like it would have been better if you had, a better lead actress." And he doesn't realize that actually hurts my feelings because she did what I told her to do. I got the performance that I wanted out of her. So she should not be blamed for what she did. I should be blamed because I'm the one who said, yes, this is the performance that I sign off on. Um, but again, like you're dealing with audiences don't always understand that. Like
Right.
they don't, and especially your friend doesn't want to blame you. And it's like, it's okay. You feel free to blame me. I'm the one who stands behind your performance. Blame me. It's okay.
Yeah. If CQ made a movie, I'd blame him for everything. No, I've no problem throwing blame. But yeah, it's like
Right?
like you said, we're a Monday morning quarterback and all these movies. Like we don't know what the
Like
heck
needs
goes into it. You spend 3 years like writing and making the movie, and then we spend 30 seconds shitting on it.
Right.
And
It's how it's normal. It's how it goes. And like I think, yeah, you do have to develop, a thick skin with that. And just I think the way I've tried to look at it is like, what if somebody told me that 70% of people didn't like my movie, but 30% really liked it, and they thought it was like it meant a lot to them. It was special, and they could relate to it. I'm okay with that. That's fine. I mean, it's art. Not everybody's going to like it. And not to mention that technically means if like 300 million people see your movie, yeah, all right, 210 million don't like it. 90 million love it. Think it's great. That's fine. It's enough people.
fantastic.
Like,
Yeah.
so I think it's like you just don't want to make a movie that everyone sees and goes, oh, God, whoa, that thing was awful. Like, what were they thinking? I mean, what a waste of time. And I think that at least with my movie, there's that passion behind it where I don't think most people would see it and think it was some sort of like, I don't know, cynical cash grab or some sort of waste of time. They may have this or that issue with it, just fine. But, I think most people can see that it's like it comes from a good place. It comes from, a passionate personal story. And that's all you can do is like you put your personal story out there. And once you put it into the world, it's not yours anymore. And people get to judge it. That's what you signed up for when you
Yeah,
made it.
exactly.
you know,
And everyone has an opinion, and it's easily shared these days. But as long as you
right?
do what you want to do and you gave it your best effort, that's all you can do.
Absolutely.
And like you said,
Yeah, as
a
long as you're
few
proud
people
of it.
like it, a few million people like it. That's more than
Right?
enough. I mean, people like Fast and the Furious.
Yeah. I
But
mean, and you'll see things that like just they have to make you chuckle. You have to chuckle because we're all so different, right?
yeah,
So there was like one review that said these were both like overall positive reviews. One review said that he could have done without any of Mike's alcohol abuse, and then the other one said that we should have leaned into the alcohol abuse more and shown it more. And so I'm just like, okay. I mean, damned if you do, damned if you don't. I guess
yeah,
like.
but it's like, yeah, I don't know. Because then other people probably wouldn't like it. I don't know. I think it's
Right.
just, you gotta do what you think is best.
I kind of I wanted to toe the line a bit where it's like we see that like Mike's not an alcoholic, but he's somebody he's lost, and he's struggling. And I think he's trying to fill the time more than anything. Like he just doesn't know what to do with himself. So
Exactly.
he's not drinking because he like has a problem. He's drinking because he's just flat out bored.
Yeah.
And so he's like, I go across the street, get some lunch, grab a couple beers. What's the harm, Like I'll be fine. I'm not gonna go crazy, but I may have two or three, maybe four beers. It's like one turns into four kind of thing.
Exactly. It's common and relatable. Like a lot of people do that, especially if you're a struggling business owner. I mean, we watch a
Yeah,
lot of like the freaking bar rescue shows. It's like every other bar, the owner's in there drinking. Like I'm 250K in debt, and he's just sitting there pounding Long Island's and stuff. And it's like, yeah, it's like, what else are you
oh,
gonna do? Like you don't know. Like you have no other
that
options. It's like, yeah, you're gonna
that
toss a
is
few
so funny.
back.
Right. I,
So,
I remember so for a while my brother-in-law worked at a bar, like quite a while. And we lived like walking distance away. It was a decent walk. I mean, it was probably like 9 blocks, but whatever. I'll make the walk. So we go there and he gives me like brother-in-law pricing on everything. So I'd go there and have like 6 pints of beer, and then the final check comes to like $12. I just remember being like, whoever owns this bar is getting screwed.
Right.
Like, I mean, no wonder these places don't make money because you got a bartender who invites his brother-in-law and his friends in, and none of them are paying anything
Exactly.
for this year.
What the hell?
So,
Everything's empty.
right. So like my bill would be like $12, but I'd tip him like $20 and pretty much just, I'd be like, well, what would it have cost? And I'll just give him the difference,
That's the way to do it.
But then the owner of the bar is getting kind of screwed, right?
Yeah.
Oh man.
Well, hopefully they make it up with other people. That's the way I look at it. But
exactly.
another thing is if it's beer, like I think it costs them like 75 cents. It's probably more now, but it used to be like 75 cents a beer. So it's like, and you're charging $5. They're making money.
Yeah, so true. But yeah, I think a lot of the things too when it comes to like a movie is the movie has to stand on its own, right? Like, so you can make a choice that in your mind you justify, like, this is the choice that I'm making. I think it makes sense. I think people get it. But then when it actually comes out, like, you're not allowed to really defend it. It's because it's not going to come along with the movie, right? It's not like, here's the director's commentary, like, telling you why he did what he did. So you have to kind of accept that it's like, the parts aren't going to work for everyone. Like, I'll give you an example without spoiling it. It's like somebody took issue with the extreme act that Mike's competitor goes for, like to compete with Mike's business. I did too. That was actually it was a producer note, and I said, I don't know. I think we might be going too far with that. It just seems isn't that kind of like unrealistic? And so then he said, no, it isn't. It happens all the time. And I'm like, all right, well, give me a day to think about this. So then I go on Google and I start searching and finding news story after news story after news story. And I couldn't believe it, but he's absolutely right. It happens all the time. So it isn't unrealistic because it literally happens all the time, like any business. And so that's when I said, oh, okay, you're right. But it doesn't mean that there's not going to be viewers who see it and go, oh, okay, that's ridiculous. Like, I can't believe that he would actually do that. And it's like, that's okay. That's fine. Like, you're entitled to that. But I just had to do based on my research, what I felt like this is something realistic that I think might happen. It's not going to work for everyone. And I do think that we kind of wanted to play up our villain a bit and make it a little comic book like, so when you see Chad in the movie and you're like, oh, I don't know, I think Chad, he's a little over the top, isn't he? And I'm like, he is a little over the top, but that was very much intentional. Like, it was very much, that's why we had the comic transitions and we kind of set this whole comic world, because I feel like a lot of the times comic book villains are really over the top. And we wanted to almost make it like this is Mike's comic story. And do you trust that everything you see in the comic shop is the way things really happened? Or is this a little bit of Mike telling his own story and maybe sort of exaggerating a couple things along the way because that's what a comic book writer might do, So I know some people, I think, caught on to that. And other people are like, well, I don't know about all this. If this were a documentary, this is not how this would have went,
And I always hate that, and I don't understand. It's like, it's a movie. Like, it's entertainment. Like, if it was real, nobody would watch it, or we would all be just watching documentaries. Like, no. Bullets. Bullets don't go through table. Like, a table can't stop a bullet. It's just gonna go right through it. And like, every magazine and action movie has 5,000 rounds. Like,
oh, I know. They only need to reload when it's convenient for the plot. If you notice. Like,
right.
Like, oh gosh, now I need to reload because the villain is right here above me. But it makes for, like, it is that kind of thing where you're absolutely right, because my first early drafts of the script were a lot more realistic, but the comments I got were that, it's really naturally written. It's really realistic, but it's a little slow. It's a little boring, and they were right, because sometimes if you make things too realistic, the pacing isn't quite there. The highs aren't quite as high. The lows aren't quite as low. It's very much like just watching a day in the life of, and that's okay. Like some of the critics love that. I personally find those movies to be really boring when it's like too realistic and it's the pacing is just off. So you have to kind of draw that line where it's like, don't push it too far. Don't make it like if the audience is sitting there like going, "Oh my gosh, that would never happen." But I have to say, sometimes the truth is stranger than fiction. Like
True.
that Last Breath movie where the guy, the diver is underwater for 31 minutes without oxygen and he survives without brain damage. That actually happened. If that wasn't based on a true story, I would have told you that's not possible. You can't. You can only go 7 or 8 minutes.
Yeah.
That's nonsense. But like somehow it happened, and scientists aren't exactly sure. They think it's the cold water combined with the super oxygenated tank that he was breathing before, but
Mhm.
they're still not exactly sure. Um, or if you watch sports, there was a game about just before the playoffs where Dallas was up 4-2 against Vancouver. Vancouver pulls the goaltender, and Dallas scores on the empty net. It's 5-2. And there it stayed 5-2 until there was 1 minute to go. Vancouver scored at 59 seconds. They scored at like 30 seconds, and they scored again at 5 seconds. They tied the game. They went to overtime, and they won the game in overtime. If that had not happened, if you saw that in a movie, you would be calling BS.
Yeah.
You would be sitting there going, "Oh, this is some Disney nonsense." Like, we can't score 3 goals in the last minute. It's impossible. It's like, but it actually happened.
Yeah.
That's the crazy part.
Which is amazing. And those are the things that people like to watch. And it's weird that
Right.
we like it's like, yeah, if you throw that based on a true story or whatever in there, it's like, okay, I'll accept it. But if you just throw it in there randomly, everyone's like, ah, that's bullcrap.
You're you're
It's like, what are
right.
you talking about?
Like,
The guy just jumped out of a plane, like, with no
right.
parachute, and he grabbed on another guy with a parachute. It's like, and you want to
Yeah.
complain about, like, something like, oh, he fired 40 rounds and that magazine only holds 12 or whatever dumb stuff. It's like, what are you
Right. Like in
talking
something like,
about?
yeah, it's like something like Jurassic Park, and it's like, they complain about like a gun, and you're like, oh, that's the part of the movie that was unrealistic.
Yeah.
Not the part about the velociraptors running around,
Right.
but it was the gun that really tripped you up. Okay, I see.
Yeah.
But
There's,
yeah, I think that the other one that I've always laughed about because it makes me just want to kind of ask them like explain what does that mean to you is when they say, yeah, I liked it. I liked this movie. It was really good. It was fun, but it was pretty predictable. And I'm thinking to myself like, but I mean, you'd complain if it wasn't. Like if let's say I had Mike at the end of the movie just pull a gun and just kill himself and decide that life wasn't worth living anymore. You'd be ticked that you wasted your time. I mean, 90% of the audience would be like, "Oh my god, are you kidding me? Like why did I watch this movie? Like this is just depressing." And if you look at most things, I'm like, wait a minute. So Star Wars isn't predictable? Like, you're kidding. Did you think that Darth Vader was going to win at the end of the movie? Like,
right.
no. Every single movie that we all like are really predictable movies, except for some horror films. There are some horror films where you think, I don't know if this is going to be one where they kill everyone or one or two characters makes it out. Maybe I've definitely seen horror where I thought, oh, she's the main girl. She's going to make it out alive. And then they kill her too. And I'm like, oh, okay, never mind. It was one of those where no one's going to make it
Yeah,
out
right.
alive. And that's okay. That's good. But I don't think that it's a criticism that holds a lot of weight to me because usually we kind of know like the way it goes. And I was watching some sports movie. I'm trying to think what it was, but a couple months ago I watched a sports movie and I thought it was going to be one of those predictable ones, like the happy ending. And I watched the whole thing and it didn't have a happy ending. And so, okay, fair. That movie was not predictable. I hated that movie because I thought I can't believe I watched 2 hours of a sports movie for it to have a bummer of an ending. Like, no, not interested. That doesn't do anything for me at all. Like, I want the payoff, then you didn't give it to me. So, thumbs down.
Well, you
But
spend the whole
thumbs up for not being
time.
predictable.
Yeah, you spend the whole time relating to the characters and building that relationship in that short period of time, and you have this it's like you read a book or something too. You build everything up in your mind of what's going to happen and what you see them doing, and then when it doesn't happen, you want to get upset. But when it does happen, you're like, "That's bullshit." It's
Yeah,
like, okay.
I know. I think it's very hard to say. Like, I think, that's why as a creator you really have to focus much more on what makes you happy. And I know that sounds selfish, but I have to say this is the decision that I think is right for my movie because I'm watching it so that I like it. And I have to trust that I'm not such a unique individual that I'll be the only person to like my movie. So, because I think imagine what a cynical perspective it is to sit there and think, what would most audiences like for this scene? I bet it's probably 65-35. Okay, that's what we'll do. Because if you made a whole movie like that by like committee, it would be a mess of a movie.
Right.
You can't be doing that. And not to mention that you actually have no way of knowing what most people like. That's just a guess. And it's going to be a biased one anyways, because it's going to be based on the people you know. Yeah, well, what would my friends like? Well, that's not a great way to make art, I don't think. I
No.
think you have to make it something that comes from you, comes from inside, and comes from passion. And it has to be completely acceptable if somebody else sees your work and goes, I'm sorry, it just didn't connect with me. And somebody else says, oh, I loved it. God, it really spoke to me. And it's like, well, that's why we're all different, right? I mean, and that's why there's thousands of movies out there so that you can love some of them, you can hate other ones. And I think that's part of the fun too, is that you can talk to your friend. Like I just was my friend, and he doesn't like Hitman with Glenn Powell.
Yeah.
I thought that was a great movie. So we were like sitting there arguing about it. I'm like, really? What didn't you like about it? But if we all agreed, what a boring conversation, right? Yeah, that was great. Yeah, it was. This one was bad. Yep, that was bad.
Exactly. That's how
We have nothing to talk about.
that's what we have this show. So we just share different opinions. I have one opinion, and my guests, or when I'm the co-host, we contradict each other.
Right?
That's the whole world. But
Oh
yeah,
yeah.
and that's what's good. Like when you make things you like and you're interested in, and like your movie, which it's really relatable. I think to a lot of people, a lot of it in it's like every kid and person that ever stepped foot in a comic shop. So it's just that's the thing. I guess you just got to do what you like and go for it. But yeah, it's highly relatable. I liked it, enjoyed it. I recommend it. A lot of it, I was like, holy shit, I did that shit. Like when you gave him the book, like learn the basics. It's like I had the book. Well, I bought that one recently, but the first book
That's a
makes you
big
draw.
book. Yeah. I know we were kind of I'm trying to think who did that. One of our associating producers or coordinating producers, she was saying that there was this book that has like a really big following on social
Hmm.
media. Everybody loves this book. And she said it'd be really neat if we could use that book, if we could get it cleared. And I said, absolutely, that's a great idea. Yeah, get that thing cleared. And so then yeah, we got this book in it, and I will say that I'm glad you picked it out because it was a weird moment in the editing room where I just looked at that scene and I thought, we didn't have a better close up of the book. Like it seemed like you kind of see it like trading hands, and then you see it open when he's like sketching from it, but there wasn't like a real good unobstructed close up of it. That must have been one of those time constraint things.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. It like in the context of the plot, it doesn't matter at all. But it just kind of surprised me that like I was asking my editor, come on, keep looking. It's got to be in there. I'm sure we would have shot that. I just can't see that we wouldn't have done that.
Yeah.
But yeah, so good catch on that one. And we that also plays into Mike's sort of like, a little bit of a dickish nature. Like that's not really trying. I mean, he said he would help Brandon learn how to draw, and he just hands him a book at the start. Says, "Hey, here, kid, read the book, figure it out." But we want to make Mike like a guy who's a little bit of a tough nut to crack, and he opens up
Yeah.
as it goes.
No, you did a great job on that. Yeah. All right, we got to wrap it up here.
Yeah,
But yeah, tell everyone where they could see the movie, what you have coming up, where they can contact you on your socials or whatever.
yeah. So it is for. I'll give my little pitch for the first one. It's for rent or sale on anything like Apple TV or Amazon or Fandango, Google, those things. That is the best quality. However, I understand, a lot of us we don't watch movies that way a lot anymore. Go to our streaming services and we watch what's up there. So it is for free on places like Tubi. Amazon has it free with ads. I think there's about 8 other sources. I don't even know the names of all of them, but it's all those ad supported ones. So you do have to deal with the ads. And as a filmmaker, you're going to be watching the movie with 2.0 sound, whereas we did a full surround mix, in a nice studio. And so, of course, that's the way I prefer people see it. But I totally get it. So maybe somebody, if you want to check it out on Tubi and you like it, then you could buy a copy that's like the full quality kind of deal. But yeah, lots of ways to see it at least, and I'd love to people check it out and just see what you think.
Yeah, we highly recommend it. CQ and I both watched it, and we like it.
That's awesome.
I'd buy it. Just spend a little couple bucks. Can't hurt. People spend money on a lot worse.
Well, I appreciate it so much, and especially as an indie filmmaker, it's all we can do. We have to kind of like put ourselves out there and hope that our audiences find it, because we don't have the resources to go like take out crazy ads and to put it in theaters and all that. So we just have to kind of connect with other people. And as far as my socials go, I've got directorbowen.com, Bowen, and then I've also got @directorbowen on Instagram. I try to post pretty often, like with updates on Instagram. My website, I usually do a good job, but it desperately needs an update. The last month has been really busy, and now I've got to add like 12 blog entries to it. So. But still, it's a good place to check out my other work as well. And my first movie, we're putting it back up through through this distributor. They made a deal with me, and they said, hey, we'll take your first movie and put it back up there. I do not have an idea exactly when that will be, but we've completed delivery. It's called Amy Allison Fans. It's like the way I would sell it is it's a guys skewing romantic comedy. So I'm not saying your girlfriend wouldn't like it, but think like I Love You Man or I'm Forgetting Sarah Marshall, where like us guys can actually enjoy this movie and, more for us.
It's perfect for us.
Right.
All right, so keep an eye out for that. Appreciate you coming on. It's been great. Thanks for chatting with us.
Yep. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
We can get you back on next project or to talk again.
Yes,
it's been a pleasure.
That would be fun.
All right, thank you.
Absolutely. Once I know, I'll let you know.
All right, sounds good. All right, I'll throw it to a quick break, and we'll be back to wrap it up.